So, Dr. Kimbark, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. I understand you're the program manager for the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, which falls under the Department of Defense. Very exciting program, something that is desperately needed in rare diseases to advance our knowledge as well as to advance the treatment of malignant mesothelioma. So welcome, and please tell us what we need to know to get these applications to you in the right fashion and with the right focus.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to present today to the Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation. This is really important for us to reach out to all of our different topic areas, but especially topic areas that are rare and have a smaller research community. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll start telling you a little bit about the program and what you can expect during this presentation. I'm going to tell you first a little bit about the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. Then I'm going to get into the basics of the Peer Review Cancer Research Program and how mesothelioma fits in. I'll talk a little bit about the differences of the different type of award mechanisms, and then I'll also give you some strategies for success and also give you some hints of pitfalls people fall into that cause their applications to either be withdrawn or rejected. So first of all, who is a CDMRP? The Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs sits under the Department of Defense. We're part of the Army, specifically the Army Futures Command within the Medical Research and Development Command in Maryland. If you go to the next slide. What is the CDMRP? This is our umbrella organization. Our umbrella organization has the vision to transform healthcare for service members in the American public through innovative and impactful research. Our mission, and we have to have a mission because we're part of the DoD, right? We responsibly manage collaborative research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions for service members, veterans, and the American public. It's important to note that we are not a research, we don't do research here. We're a research funding activity. So that's really what we're trying to do. And how we're trying to do that is by funding groundbreaking, high impact research for all of our stakeholders. And our stakeholders include Congress. It includes patients and patient advocates. It includes scientists. It includes clinicians. It includes veterans and service members and all of the American public. So we take into account everyone's voice and try to figure out what the best strategic plan is for instance, mesothelioma. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Peer Review Cancer Research Program. We started in fiscal year 09, and we've been a program under the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program since fiscal year 09. As you can see in that chart, you can see our appropriations, or how much money we have to invest, has gone up exponentially. In FY20, we had 110 million. In FY21, we have $115 million. How we are going to tackle that and what our vision is as a program is to advance mission readiness of those in the U.S. military affected by cancer and to improve their quality of life by decreasing the burden of cancer on service members, their families, and the American public. It's really important to note that we really try to do this by successfully promoting high impact research for cancer prevention, detection, treatment, quality of life, and survivorship. Our funds and how we handle our funds are on the next slide. So let's talk about the next slide. Let's talk about our congressional language. Our congressional language for FY21 is shown here on this slide. We have 20 topic areas in FY21. We have some new topic areas shown on the left-hand side of the slide, and we have our good old topic areas that have been with us for quite a while, mesothelioma being one of them. FY21 also means that our appropriation is $115 million. Our topic areas are 20. 6 new topic areas are included within that. And we do have prohibited cancers. These are cancers that cannot be funded under the peer review cancer research program. Breast, pancreatic, prostate, ovarian, kidney, lung, melanoma, and rare cancers. Now, you might think, oh, lung and rare cancer, that means mesothelioma cannot be funded under PRCRP. No, that's not true. Mesothelioma, since it is a named topic area, can be funded under the PRCRP. All of our topic areas and all of the research must be relevant to service members and their families. That's required. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means next. So let's go to the next slide. On our next slide, you'll see how we handle the requirement for all funding opportunities that have relevance to military health. First of all, mesothelioma is one of the easier ones to figure out what the relevance to military health might be, is because of the fact that it is may be linked to asbestos, so exposures. So asbestos increases the risk of cancer, especially long-term in veterans. That doesn't necessarily mean it's only in veterans and it only is in older people. We have seen an uptick in younger people with mesothelioma, and the question is why? So we still have to wonder about that, and we still have to figure that out. Now, so this is one of the areas that could be talked about, is the environmental risk or mission readiness. Now, mission readiness is a little bit more nebulous for people that are not part of the DoD or not part of the military, but let me explain that for you. Mission readiness is really about whether or not that service member can do his or her job. Are they ill with a cancer, or are their family members ill with a cancer? Either one causes that service member not to be mission ready. And if that service member is not mission ready, that means that that service member and their entire unit is not ready either. So that's a huge issue for the military and keeping our force ready for whatever it might encounter. So mission readiness, it extends beyond just the service member. So let's go to the next slide. And let's talk a little bit about some of the particular types of overarching challenges we have for FY21 for the peer review cancer research area. Now, the overarching challenges are listed in the large boxes on the bottom of this slide. But on the top in the arrows, what I've put in there is I've put in buckets of where these can actually go, from biology to etiology to detection, diagnosis and prognosis, treatment, survivorship, disparities, and resources. So really what we're looking for in biology and etiology is understanding the unique features driving cancer presentation, or understanding mechanisms behind cancer. Detection and diagnosis is really about strategies and biomarkers to predict cancer risk, treatment resistance, and so on. Develop improved minimal invasive methods to detect cancer. Treatment is transform cancer treatment through the identification of novel biomarkers or new targets and so on. And survivorship, I think a lot of people forget about survivorship when we're talking about cancer. A lot of people don't think about it. You know, I've gone through my cancer treatment, I'm done with my cancer treatment, what's going to happen to me now? And a lot of times you're just done. You know, your oncologist just says goodbye to you. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the long-term treatment effects, psychological impact of even having the recurrence or fear of recurrence, neurocognitive deficits, and overall mental health. So this is really a big area for us these days, and I really want to emphasize that. We do have the focus on disparity here, and disparity is underserved or under-recognized populations, and military populations is in there, rural populations, important communities of color, other minorities such as disabled, and women. And our resources, how do we study some of these cancers, especially some of the rarer cancers? How can we bring together biorepositories and so on so that we can actually do better research in these areas? So let's go to the next slide and start talking about how mesothelioma fits in the PRCRP. We've funded quite a bit of mesothelioma over the last couple of years. Veterans account for over 33% of all cases in the United States, probably more so. Exposure to asbestos, of course, is the leading cause. It's very rare, less than around 3,000 per year in the United States. It was first designated as a topic area under the PRCRP in fiscal year 11. Okay, so from fiscal year 11 through fiscal year 19, we've had $19 million in mesothelioma funds and 36 awards. For FY20, we have $2.2 million in 2 awards. Now, this is not exactly what we want to see here. I want to point that out, the FY20. We want to see that number be larger, and especially this year when we have more money and we have quite a bit of funds that have been opened up and are there for the taking for for researchers with strong applications. There's lots of funds available, even though there's $20 million and you're thinking to excuse me, 20 topic areas, and you're thinking, how am I going to apply for something that has 20 topic areas and $115 million? Do the math. But please don't think about it that way. Please think about it that we're always looking for the best in each one of our topic areas. My panel is very, very strong in trying to make sure that each topic area is funded in a balanced method. But if we don't have the applications for a topic area, then it just kind of doesn't get funded. And this year we were kind of weak on mesothelioma. So for FY21, we really want to strengthen that up. And I just showed here Dr. Yang out of the University of Hawaii and some of the work that she did on enhancing our knowledge for the early strategies of mesothelioma development. And you can pause it here and take a look at this and see what she's done. You can also go on to our website, just put in CDMRP into your favorite search browser, and you can look under PRCRP for information on mesothelioma. So let's go to the next slide. Now let's talk about how you're going to apply and what you're going to apply for. Let's talk a little bit about how we manage this. First of all, our program cycle starts with a congressional appropriation. It's a congressional appropriation. PRCRP is not in the president's budget. It is added to the budget by Congress. And only because of the fact of places like Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation going to Congress and asking for these funds to be added. We have our vision setting, which is our investment strategy meeting, and then we release our program announcements. And on March 24th of this year, we released 5 program announcements for the peer review cancer research program. So there's going to be a pre-application process that I'm going to talk to you about, then a full application process, which I will also talk to you about, and I'll also review the peer and programmatic review and give you some hints on that so that you can get through those wickets as well. So let's go to the next slide. So first of all, you're interested in finding what those funding opportunities are. So first of all, as I said, go to your favorite browser, put in CDMRP, and you'll find our website. You can click on funding opportunities and find a way to get to our funding opportunities. Or if you've been funded before, you might know about our portal called eBRAP. You can put that eBRAP, E-B-R-A-P, into your favorite browser and it'll pop up too, and you can go and find our funding opportunities there. Or if all else fails and you forget that, you can go to grants.gov. When you go to grants.gov for the CFDA number, put in 12.420, and all of our different program announcements for the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, including the PRCRP, will pop up. So let's go to the next slide. So here is what we're going to do. The submission process is 2 stages. You have pre-application and you have full application. So as a principal investigator, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to walk over to your business official, or you're going to Zoom with them or talk to them in some way or shape or form, and you're going to tell them, I'm going to apply for this award mechanism. Get them ready, okay? Then for pre-applications, either a pre-proposal or a letter of intent, you're going to apply via EBRAP. You're not going to apply via grants.gov for this first step. You're going to go to EBRAP. The second step, when you pull in the full application, you will do grants.gov. So let's go to the next slide and go into a little bit more different. What is the difference between a pre-proposal when you're in EBRAP and a letter of intent? There are two different types of pre-applications, the pre-proposal and the letter of intent. So the pre-proposal is only for certain mechanisms. For instance, the IDEA award and the impact award, which I will discuss with you in just a little bit. Here you have to write out a 2-page narrative answering what's in the program announcement, questions in the program announcement for the IDEA award or the impact award. This pre-proposal, including some bio sketches and some other supporting documents that are requested, will be submitted through EBRAP. The pre-proposal will be reviewed by the Programmatic Panel, and an invitation to submit a full application is required. The Programmatic review will look at all of these pre-proposals, and they will review them according to what's stated in the funding opportunity or the program announcement. So then everything that they reviewed, they'll make a recommendation on what will be invited to submit a full application. Now for the letter of intent, the letter of intent is easier. It's a submission through EBRAP, once again, and it's just a letter stating your intent to apply. I intend to apply, and I'm going to do research in mesothelioma, period. That's all you have to do. It's not reviewed. It's used for administrative purposes only, and no invitation is required to submit a full application. This is for the Behavioral Health Science Award, the Translational Team Science Award, and the Career Development Award. These I will introduce you to in just a moment. So let's go to the next slide. Now I'm going to introduce you to some of those funding opportunities I just mentioned on the previous slide. The first one is the IDEA Award. The IDEA Award has been part of the peer review cancer research program since way back, I think FY10. So it's been around for about 11 years. All researchers with a faculty level appointment are eligible. It supports innovative, high-risk, high-gain type of research. And the emphasis is on innovation. So that's important to start thinking about what your innovation is about. The preliminary data is not required, and the direct costs are $500K for up to 3 years. Now, the key points for success for the IDEA Award is argue your case in innovation. Okay, innovation is not an incremental advance. It's not the next logical step that your research is going to. It's not changing cancers from one cancer to another. Really, innovation is that wow moment, you know, something that you don't have any, don't have any preliminary data on, only have a little bit of preliminary data, and you really want to get down in the weeds of this idea. So really, this is a seed mechanism. This is where you're going to generate your preliminary data and justify why it's innovative. Preliminary data will be evaluated if it is included. If you decide not to include preliminary data, you better have some strong justification and background as to why this is innovative and why it is scientifically sound. But if you do supply some preliminary data, it will be evaluated. So make sure it's good. Pay attention to those overarching challenges in the impact statement, and don't phone in the military health focus areas. We have a whole attachment that you have to submit for the military health focus areas. I'm going to tell you to go onto the CDMRP website, go to the PRCRP website, and go scroll all the way down, and you can click on a wonderful YouTube video that we have that talks about military health focus areas. Don't phone it in. Be strong about it, because what I've seen is I've seen 2 applications that are just about the same, and they always pick the one that has a stronger military focus areas. That's not to say that you have to be associated with a VA. You don't have to be always tackling military issues and so on, but you have to understand that how it's going to affect the military. So let's go to the next slide. So the Impact Award, the IDEA Award that we just talked about, and the Impact Award are both of those award mechanisms that you have to do a pre-application. You have to write a pre-proposal for, 2 pages. So the Impact Award is an assistant professor or above are eligible. Here we're supporting research that demonstrates the potential to have a major impact in the near term for mesothelioma. Clinical trials are supported here. So if you have a clinical trial in mesothelioma, this is the place to go. Preliminary data, of course, are required, and it's 1.25 million over those 3 years. And the impact should be clearly stated on how it will be near term. If you're doing something that's in animals, explain how it's going to translate to the next logical step. This is really where we're looking to grow something. This is beyond the IDEA Award. It's not about innovation now. It's really about growing and developing that idea for clinical applicability. Justify your work and how it's going to work with the PRCRP overarching challenges. And then this is the Impact Award. And as I said, it's really about translating that work to the next step along the way. And that's the continuity of research. And when I like to talk about this is that you have a part of your application package is a research outcomes plan. You have to write out a research outcomes plan. What I like to tell people to do here is do an Einstein thought experiment. Before you write this research outcomes plan, sit down and think about if your hypothesis is true, what will that mean? What will be the next step you will take? How will you take it? What types of collaborations or networks do you need? And do you have those in-house right now? Do you have those people collaborating with you right now? And then write out your future plans, possibly write a Gantt chart or whatnot, and then you'll be ready to write your outcomes plan. And really make this research distinct and should be funded for future patient outcomes. This is really what the Impact Award about is near-term impact for patient outcomes. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, we'll be looking at the Translational Team Science Award. Now, the Translational Team Science Award does not require the pre-proposal. You're going to do a letter of intent. Here, you're going to have a team together. That's why it has team in the title, right? You're going to have an assistant professor or above are eligible. 2 to 3 PIs are going to partner together on an overarching project. You're going to support an hypothesis-driven correlative study associated with an ongoing or completed clinical trial. This does not mean that you should be doing an exploratory research here. We're really not trying to do exploratory research. What we're really trying to do is something that, you know, you have some clinical trials that are running and you have funds to run that clinical trial, but you don't have funds to do the studies that are associated with that clinical trial. So this is really what that's about. So of course, we're supporting some of that clinical trial work. The preliminary data are required, and we've increased the direct cost to $2.5 million amongst the partners over 4 years. So this is our largest award mechanism that we've ever had. The collaboration, you should clearly show how and why the investigators are all critical to the success. The translation should be that the bench is informing the clinic. You took those samples from the clinic and now you're going to re-inform the clinic about what you found at the bench. So that's really clinical applicability. Once again, you have the overarching challenges and you do have to do a research outcomes plan. And I talked about that before. So let's go to the next slide. Now the next slide is one of my favorite funding opportunities. If I can pick a favorite, they're all my children, but yes, I do like this one the most. This is the Behavioral Health Science Award. And the reason why I like this one is because it's going towards survivorship. And it's one of the areas that I feel as if we forget about as scientists. So here we're looking for independent investigators with a faculty level appointment or equivalent. We're really trying to support innovative research for behavioral health science. And especially the 3 stages of survivorship, which I will talk about in a moment. Here you're looking at survivorship, quality of life, psychosocial effects that are related to cancer. We're allowing support of a pilot clinical trial, and only 3 of the overarching challenges are included for this one. And they are specified within the program announcement itself. The preliminary data required for the applications is required only for applications that are proposing a pilot clinical trial, and the direct costs are $1 million over 4 years. So the key point for success here is really the point is to change patients' lives with cancer and beyond treatment. Patient advocates have to be involved in the research team, not in just the clinical trial, but the research team itself. They have to have an intellectual voice within that team, and they should be from the cancer being studied. Once again, we're going to justify why we're picking one of those 3 overarching challenges. And also, we're going to tailor the application to one of the 3 stages or all of the stages of survivorship. Acute being the survivorship from the diagnosis through the end of the initial treatment. Extended being survivorship end of the initial treatment through the months after. And then permanent, this is survivorship years past since cancer treatment ended. Long-term effects of cancer and treatment are the focus here. So think about those as you move forward through with the Behavioral Health Science Award. Now we have one more funding opportunity. If we go to the next slide, and that funding opportunity is the Career Development Award Fellowship option. These are for independent investigators at or above the level of research assistant professor or instructor, and within 7 years of completing their terminal degree. This does not include time spent in residency or fellowship, or time spent, or medical fellowship, I should say, or time spent on a medical leave. Okay, so we're really trying to get into those early career investigators. We really want to be able to foster a new number of people that are working in mesothelioma early on in their career. The career guide is at the level of an associate professor. This is really the mentor of the early career investigator. But we call them a career guide because the early career investigator is the PI of the award, and they're not really in a mentored position anymore. We're trying to support impactful research. The history of extramural funding is not required. In fact, we ask for only nominal startup funds, and that's it. So you don't have to have extramural funding. RR1s are not required here. Preliminary data is not required. The direct costs are $400K over 3 years, and we're asking for 50% protected time in research. Doesn't have to be specifically for this research, but it should be for research overall. And here, really, we're supporting impactful research, so justify how your work is going to be impactful for mesothelioma. Once again, justify how your work is going to advance one of the overarching challenges. And one of the important parts of the application package for the Career Development Fellow Award option is that career development plan. And so many times, I see that career development plan bringing the score down. So many times because people just phone it in or do it the last moment. So go and talk to your career guide. Ask them what's the best way to get through a career development, how to get through the wickets of your career development and the next step. Show involvement of the career guide. Show a logical progression of your career. How are you going to get through the wickets of your career? What are your milestones to further that career? What is your networking and collaboration? Say you don't have a lot of mesothelioma people at your institute. How are you going to network and collaborate and get that strong collaboration? And also including workshops, training, and courses that will strengthen your career overall. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, I'm going to start talking about the funding opportunity documents and how to get through all of these wickets. So the program announcement is called the funding opportunity, and it will have the name of the funding opportunity on it, such as the Behavioral Health Science Award. And it also has your submission and review dates. Those are important to pay attention to because you have your pre-application dates, your application submission dates, your verification period, and your peer and programmatic review. And then you have your general application instructions. This is a supplemental document that you should definitely pay attention to because it will give you step-by-step instructions down to press the button here, submit here, that type of thing, so that you really know what to do and when to do it. So it's a really important document. It's the instructions for you to put together the furniture, okay? So think of it that way. So let's go to the next slide. So as I told you, one of the things you're going to be dealing with is peer review. After you submitted your application, after you've done all of that, peer review is going to take place. And what happens at peer review? It's not done in a dark, alley somewhere or something like that, dark room with people just battling it out. No, this is not how it's done. We have specific rules and how this is done. Technical merit assessment is based on that ideal application. For the DoD, for the CDMRP, we are not comparing your applications at this time. We don't have a whole bunch of applications that are being compared against one another. We're comparing it against an ideal application or the gold standard. And we're going to do this by a criteria-based evaluation of the entire application. So I'll talk to you about how that evaluation is going to work and how it's going to change who you are and what you're doing as far as writing your application. Now, the panels are comprised of scientific and consumer reviewers. Who are consumer reviewers? They are patients with the disease or advocates or caregivers of patients with the disease. And they are going to tell the panel whether or not this is impactful research. And it's important to pay attention to them because they could really bring your application up to the top or sink it. So no standing panels are allowed. We recruit our reviewers every single year, so we don't have study sections that come back on an annual basis. The identities are not known to the applicants, and contact between the reviewers and the applicants is not permitted. From peer review, a summary statement will be sent to the next tier of review. But before we get into that summary statement and how it's reviewed, let's go to the next slide and talk about how peer review actually takes place. What you have here is an example of the peer review criteria. I just have one little thing here. This is the research strategy and feasibility evaluation criteria, some of it, not all of it, but some of it. And as you can see, there are specific questions on this. For instance, that second to last bullet, to what degree the application addresses potential problem areas and potential pitfalls and presents alternative methods and approaches. Did you do that in your application? Did you make sure that that application paid attention to that? So what I like to tell people is, sure, go ahead and take a look at the project narrative requirements. And then when you're doing that, pull it over and take a look at the peer review criteria. Because what you're going to see is one of the things that I did when I was writing that project narrative is I took all of those words and I plopped it into the research strategy and then I made them into evaluative sentences. So if you don't pay attention to everything that's in the project narrative section or in the any of the other sections of the application, attachments, for instance, like the impact statement, if you don't pay attention to what I've asked for in the peer review criteria, that gives the peer reviewer an area that they can actually give you a weakness, because that summary statement that they're going to evaluate you with has strengths and weaknesses. And the weaknesses are always going to be looked at from here. They're going to say, oh, they didn't bring in an alternative strategy, or they interwove their aims If aim 2 is dependent on the success of aim 1, it's not an aim 2. It's a sub-aim of aim 1. So it's very important to make certain, excuse me, to make certain that you pay attention to what the peer review criteria is and what good grantsmanship is. Now, as I said, peer reviewers are going to be scoring and giving the strengths and the weaknesses. After that, the summary statement goes to the Programmatic Review Panel. And the Programmatic Review Panel is going to now look at what that summary statement said with the strengths and the weaknesses. And they're going to look at the strong scientific merit. They're going to look at the potential for impact, the relevance to the overarching challenges, and the military health focus area. And they're going to look at all of this, and they're going to start comparing and contrasting. They're also going to do portfolio composition. As I said, our panel is very cognizant of every single topic area getting funded. So it's important to make your best case and articulate your justification about why you should be funded, why it's innovative, why it's impactful, and why it has military relevance. So our programmatic panel members are comprised of consumers, clinicians, researchers, and active duty military. So let's go to the next slide. When we look at the next slide, you can see our list of programmatic panel members. Our chair is Dr. John Kudish out of the University of Mexico. We have multiple active duty service members on our panel that are active duty oncologists. We also have veterans on our panel, as well as consumers. Consumers are people that are that have the disease. Our programmatic review criteria is shown here. Adherence to the award mechanism, the ratings and evaluations of peer reviewers, as well as portfolio balance, looking at the military health focus areas, and the overarching challenges. The one thing here that's the most important part of this entire slide is do not include any programmatic panel members in your application. Pay attention to that. Do not include these panel members in your application. Dr. Aaron Mansfield out of the Mayo Clinic is a mesothelioma expert. He should not be on your application. No, do not put that in. And I'd like to tell people not to phone it in with your military health focus area one more time here. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, these are some strategies that I just like to put on one slide for strategies for success. Number one, your deadlines are important. Those deadlines on the very first page of the program announcement are important for you to pay attention to. If you come in late, I cannot let you in. The grants.gov submission deadline is your deadline date. It's also important for you to take a chance and look at your verification period. That's between the grants.gov date and the verification deadline date. During that period, you can go ahead and take a look at your application package. And when you take a look at your application package, you will be able to see what's wrong with it. And when you see what's wrong with it, you'll be able to fix it. So what is grantsmanship and how is it important? State your idea up front. This is what I like to call the TED Talk. State your idea up front and then back it up. Justify what you're doing and why you're doing it. And do it with a clear voice. Forget the jargon. It's not a competition to see how many abbreviations can be included. It makes it more difficult for the peer reviewer to review your application, and it makes it more difficult for them to actually evaluate your application. So forget the jargon. A couple of abbreviations are good, but once you get into too many abbreviations, it makes it a gamush that nobody can tell what you're trying to say. And as I said, review your documents prior to submission. Use that verification period in order to make sure you put in all the bio sketches, in order to make sure that all your attachments are there. And what's your intent? How do you fit in? Why should we fund you as opposed to others? And this is that TED Talk again. State your idea up front and then back it up. Make your case to how your research aligns with the intent of the award mechanism. What is the award mechanism? If the award mechanism is the idea award, then you definitely are innovation. It's all about innovation. Say what's innovative about it, and then make sure it's important and everybody knows what it means. Now, impact. Cool science is good. Impactful science is great. Remember, this is not science for science's sake. This is science for patients. And finally, feasibility. Clearly define your team's skills. If you need a biostatistician on your research, do not bring them in at the 11th hour. Bring them in at the very beginning so that it makes sense what you're trying to do. And outline your justification on how and why you can achieve the anticipated outcomes. Make sure that that the anticipated outcomes are clear. Make sure that your alternative strategies and your pitfalls are clear, and that you are not making your aims interdependent on each other. Let's go to the next slide. Once again, these are pitfalls. Do not include the programmatic panel members for your program or fiscal year. Do not exceed the page limits. Check your files after you've created your PDFs. Do not miss the submission deadline. Grants.gov validation can take up to 72 hours. Okay, so if you submit and you have to wait 72 hours, that means 72 hours you can't look at your application in EBRAP in verification period. So submitting earlier gives you longer time during that verification period in order to figure out whether or not everything is correct. The application verification in EBRAP is possible before the application verification deadline. Project narrative and budget are the only components that cannot be modified during the verification period. So make sure that if you need to change your project narrative and budget, it's before the grants.gov deadline. So let's go to the next slide. These are your timelines for your Idea Award and Impact Award. Idea Award and Impact Award, the final application period is due, the pre-application is due the 20th of May, and the application is due on the 8th of September, and the verification period ends on 15th of September, and then we'll have peer and programmatic review as designated on the slide. Your Idea Award and your Impact Award will require a 2-page pre-proposal, and the pre-proposal is reviewed, and you will need an invitation to submit. For the letter of intent mechanisms, such as the Translational Team Science Award, the Behavioral Health Science Award, and the Career Development Award, you'll put in your letter of intent by the 29th of July, and your full application is due on the 18th. That means that you have from the time the 24th of March all the way to the 29th of July to submit your pre-application and to write your full application until the 18th of August. There's no requirement for an invitation to submit, and the application verification period ends on the 25th of August. Peer review will be on October, and programmatic review will be in December. And we go to the next slide. For more information, please go to the CDMRP website shown here and go to PRCRP. For more information on CDMRP overall, you can look at our video. That's a CDMRP overall video, or you can go to our webinar series that goes into detail about how to submit to IDEA awards or early career investigator awards, etc. Thank you very much for your time and patience. Thank you.